This is the PickBits Daily Signal for Wednesday, July 22nd. Your signal in the day's tech noise. Here's the lineup. 1. A judge finally put a price on a pirated book used to train an AI, and it's $3,000. 2. If you live near a border town, there are 830 AI towers deciding what your movement means, and the money for 2,300 is already banked. 3. Apple started recording what you say at the Genius Bar, and none of the safeguards are enforced in software. And 4, on the brighter side, Samsung switched on something that reads all your health data together instead of leaving it in 5 separate piles. Let's get into it. This is the PickBits Daily Signal. Story 1. Back on July 7th, we covered the 100 or so authors who opted out of Anthropic's settlement to sue on their own, betting on up to $150,000 a book. That bet was against a number nobody had yet. Monday, they got it. Judge Araceli Martinez-Olguin in the Northern District of California approved the $1.5 billion class settlement, and it comes out to $3,000 a book, across roughly 500,000 works. Plaintiff's attorney Justin Nelson calls it the largest known copyright recovery in history.
Copyright protections.
We are pleased that more than 91% of authors and publishers covered by the settlement have claimed their share of the payment, and we're looking forward to bringing this matter to a close.
The split most coverage skipped is the one that reaches every other lab. The court did not say training on copyrighted books is illegal. Anthropic's argument on training survived. What died was how it got the books, some it bought and scanned, and the rest it pulled off Library Genesis and Pirate Library Mirror, which the company admitted. This ruling prices acquisition, not the model. That's narrower than the headline and a lot more expensive than it looks because almost nobody assembled a corpus cleanly back then. So if you buy or deploy models at work, your vendor questionnaire went stale this week. Stop asking whether they train on copyrighted material. Ask how the corpus was acquired and get it in writing. Most model cards don't answer that. Follow this one because publishers just pointed the same question at Google. Story 2. If you live in a border town in Arizona, Texas, or coastal California, there is already a tower deciding what your walk to the car means. 830 of them are up today. A Government Accountability Office report, which the Electronic Frontier Foundation broke down on Monday, says Homeland Security wants 2,300 by 2034. And the $1 billion is already appropriated out of the tax law signed last year. Nobody has to approve this again. The company that puts most of them up is Anduril, founded by the guy who started in virtual reality.
What Lattice is an AI-powered sensor fusion platform that can take data from thousands of sensors and integrate it into a single cohesive real-time 3D model that has everything in it tagged using machine learning. So all of the people, all of the vehicles, all the drones, all the aircraft across very large areas.
The alert is what reaches a person, and the footage stays behind it. So a model is making the call about what counts as suspicious movement out there permanently in towns where the people in frame live. I think that is a worse trade than the tower count makes it sound. They're pouring concrete faster than anyone is checking the work. The Accountability Office's own assessment records that the tower program missed its major milestones last fiscal year. We covered the Supreme Court protecting your phone's location data on July 4th, and Homeland Security buying its way into a commercial people search database on Monday. Send this to whoever sits on your town council, because tower siting gets decided locally, and almost nobody shows up for that meeting. Story 3. If you manage people who talk to customers for a living, this is your next decision, and Apple has already worked through it. Bloomberg's Mark Gurman reported Sunday that Apple is piloting something called Live Notes at a small number of stores. It records the conversation between a Genius Bar employee and a customer, transcribes it, writes an AI summary, and files that into the repair record on the employee's iPad. Apple made 3 choices that are genuinely careful. Both the worker and the customer have to consent, or it doesn't turn on, the audio is never saved, and managers don't get the transcripts. The software doesn't enforce a single one of them. Apple's own store workers already said it out loud. They're not worried about Live Notes today. They're worried about the version that shows up after somebody edits the policy.
It was simple.
They track how long people are working on their screen. They track keystrokes. They're tracking a lot of performance-related data. In addition, they're also tracking the amount of time that people are spending on break.
The lawsuit that followed is the only reason anyone knows the details, including that the system itself ended jobs once the numbers came up short enough times. Back in May, we called the leaked meta audio the template for what your employer can do with a company laptop. Live Notes just adds the microphone, so write Apple's 3 choices into procurement before you talk to a vendor, because retention and manager dashboards are the product. If you're the one being recorded, get one answer in writing. Can this transcript show up in a performance review? Whoever owns that policy at your company needs to see this one. Story 4. You've got years of health data sitting on your wrist, and reading it all against itself has always meant doing it yourself. Samsung turned that on yesterday. Health Assistant went live in US beta opt-in inside Samsung Health across Galaxy phones, the watches, and the Ring. It finally reads them against each other. Sleep, activity, nutrition, mindfulness, and vitals have always sat in separate dashboards, and the useful signal is almost always in how one drags on another. Samsung says the recommendations were validated by physicians and certified health coaches, and it draws a hard line at the far end. It will not diagnose you. No medical advice, no treatment suggestions, which is the line between a wellness app and a regulated device. And it's the same line the doctors who actually use this stuff draw for themselves.
So, I want to emphasize that, we don't make a diagnosis purely because your watch says something's wrong, right? We always want to get medical grade confirmation before we embark on any
Part Samsung says quietly is what else it reads to do that. It also reads your calendar and your lights. Engadget's example is the assistant blaming your late night lamps for your sleep. And that's a lot more than a health app usually knows about you, which is why the opt-in matters more here than it usually does. UpDoc and iHealthScreen, both of which we covered this month, had to clear the FDA to cross the line Samsung won't. So turn it on if you want it, and decide about the calendar separately. Follow the thread. I want to see what Samsung does with the calendar and lights data next. 3 of those are somebody building a file on you. The Samsung one is the only thing today that hands something back. I'll take it. That's the signal. I'll see you tomorrow.